It's the spookiest, craziest, scariest Thursday night football pregame show out there. Hi, hello, and welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. I am your host, Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman, HSFF Hour, RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship, our sponsor for tonight's Halloween edition of the show. Fantasy Football Night in America is not complete without one of the best rankers out there over at FantasyPros. And of course, check out his website, wheelrouteff.com. Welcome back to the show at FF_Wheeler on the X, Kev Wheeler. Kev, happy Halloween, man.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.
When did wheelrouteff.com get started? How did it get started? And tell our viewers a little bit about it.
So in February, the 33rd team cut their entire fantasy and betting department. So I was kind of left without a home. And it was a great crew there. I really liked them. I'm still in touch with Larky and, just
Ryan Reynolds.
Yes, Ryan. Me and Ryan Reynolds have kind of teamed up, like we'll promote each other. I would love for him to be part of the Wheel Route, but I can't afford anything.
Right?
Yeah,
I get it. But, and it's funny because Larky and Ryan and now you guys have all come on and co-hosted the show with me. And I think anybody who knows anything about fantasy can see that you are three of the sharpest minds in the business too, which is cool that Wheel Route FF is off and running.
Yeah, I figured at this point, I didn't really want to work for anybody else. This is a side gig anyway. I've kind of worked, 10 years ago, I worked my butt off to get involved in the FantasyPros rankings. And I started with my cousin's website, and I just, I wanted to grow from there. And when I signed the 33rd team, and I was doing some podcasting with the GOAT District and kind of saw how it was run from an organizational point of view, and I just I'm not a corporate guy,
right?
I should say, and I don't work well on others' deadlines, so I kind of Tuesday night, I know I'm supposed to get the rest of the season rankings out, and I'm like, but it's my site, I can wait until Thursday. It's I just got when you got a lot going on, and it's a side gig, you kind of. So it's my baby, but it's a slow progression to growth, hopefully. And, hopefully it'll, develop into something that'll actually just pay for itself. And really what I hope to do is find some young new writers bursting onto the scene that just want to be exposed. And if you're interested in writing out there or ranking or doing anything and want to latch on with somebody, I'm looking for interns.
There you go. And by the way, what's the best way? Just to fill out the contact form at wheelrouteff.com? Is that the best way?
You could do that, or even email directly to
support at wheelrouteff.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool that you're doing that for sure. Now, are you a retired teacher and coach? You're not doing that anymore?
I'm not coaching anymore. I stopped coaching for various reasons, but I was working night school on top of day school. I'm a full-time teacher. I've cut back from the extra tutoring and support programs that I had run over the years. And just because there's major budget cuts, so I had to cut back. Right. And that's given me a little bit of time to do this. But this has always been kind of in the fall, my spare time, actually year round, my spare time. I just, it's my hobby. So I just decided, heck, let me do something for myself and, work under my own plan and my own rules. So
and that's the way to do it, man. That is the way to do it. It's the American dream, and you are living it right now. We're going to help you out tonight. Not Kev we're not going to help Kev out because he doesn't need the help, but Kev is going to help all the viewers out tonight with a lot of stuff that's facing them in week 9. 2 teams on bye, no Niners, no Steelers. How do you replace them? We're going to get into that. We'll go around the NFL. We'll talk about Jordan Love with Jameis Winston and the situations going on with Green Bay and Cleveland. I do want to get into the game tonight, obviously, Thursday Night Football preview. Tank Dell is a guy that's going to be deployed up by a lot of fantasy players. Is that the right move? We'll get into that. Plus, I know you have some thoughts on, I want to say, Yeah, Breece Hall. We'll talk about Breece Hall and Jalen Allen as well. And we might even get into the Jets defense. We are going to put together an FFPC Weekly Challenge lineup with coming up in the second segment, where you can actually, for all the viewers out there watching this, go to myffpc.com and play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. You can do that with kickers or without kickers, or excuse me, with kickers and defenses or without kickers and defenses. You can play all the way up to the cutoff tonight or the Thursday night game, or you can play all the way up to the cutoff at the Sunday games when they kick off at 1:00. myffpc.com, or our producer Matt Deutsch making it real simple. Just scan the QR code on your screen right now. That'll take you right there. Register for that. As little as $35 to enter, $500. So it's going to be a fun time playing in the weekly challenge this week for sure. We'll also get into some start sits before we bid you adieu into that good night and let you enjoy the Jets and Texans. On a scale of 1 to 10, Kev, how excited are you for this game tonight for fantasy purposes? I think I'm at about like a 4.5.
Yeah, probably just below a 5 somewhere. Yeah, probably a 4. I being a ranker, the Thursday night games are super, super annoying because first of all, you have to match the guys that are going tonight up against everybody else that's playing in 3 days. But there are injuries and other things that are going on that we don't fully have the news yet. So what I kind of do is my cheat code straight in the rankings is kind of like I bump all tonight's players ahead of East, or 1 or 2 spots above where I think I would actually rank them, just in case somebody gets pulled or there's extra news that somebody's hobbled, or like Rico Dowdle gets sick an hour before the game and they bench him. Like there's, and for the guys that I rank in the top 20, I'm probably not moving them up too much. Although I saw a lot of people were higher on Joe Mixon than I was, so I bumped him up just a little bit. And we'll probably get into it later, but that Jets defense has looked like poop since
Salah's gone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that for sure. And I do want to talk about Mixon when we get into that Thursday night preview as well. But that's interesting on how you treat the Thursday night game as far as ranking goes. Let's talk about a Sunday game and maybe the game of the week. I don't know. For NFL purposes and fantasy purposes, this is going to be huge. Packers and Lions, 4:25 kickoff at Lambeau Field on Sunday afternoon for supremacy in the NFC North, which has kind of been the best division in pro football this year. It's crucial to get fantasy players right in this game because we have a hobbled Jordan Love in this game. Now, he was practicing today, listed as limited, I believe, yesterday and today. He said, he told, I want to say Matt Schneidman from The Athletic, that he believes he has a realistic shot of playing against the Lions, and he's doing what he can to suit up. It was rainy in Green Bay today. It was not great weather, and yet he was still out there. And I think that's interesting because he has a groin injury. And Rob Demovsky, I beg your pardon, Rob Demovsky from ESPN had that story. Thank you, Matt Deutsch. So groin injuries practicing in the rain, I mean, that can be problematic if you slip or anything like that. Like that could aggravate that injury pretty quickly and pretty badly. So the fact that he was out there, which was good, but this could also be mind games that Matt LaFleur is playing with Dan Campbell and the Lions, right? I think when we look at Love, we not only have to make the decision of if he's clearly injured or clearly playing hurt, what do we do with him? And then maybe just as importantly, Kev, what are we doing with Jaden Reed? What are we doing with Romeo Doubs? What are we doing with Tucker Kraft? How do you feel about this Packers lineup with and without Jordan Love on Sunday?
So as far as the receivers, they take a massive hit without him. Malik Willis has done a great job at winning, but he can't support the 4 wide receivers that we rank every week, right? Jaden Reed should still be startable. And I'm not sure where I have their ranking is going to completely depend on Jordan Love, but I would like right now I have Jordan Reed at wide receiver, or Jaden Reed at wide receiver 20.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if Love doesn't start, he'll probably drop down to the more like 25 area. I still think he has value because he does get rushes. He's getting the short passes. He's their primary targeted wide receiver. So, and he gets a couple rushes every once in a while, and he'll get them with Malik in the lineup. But as far as Jordan Love himself, I don't think he's playing. And even if he does, what did we get from him last week? Right, it was 2 quarters or a quarter and a half before he had to come out. And we didn't even know he was, or I didn't know he was hurt or hobbled or hindered at all.
Right.
So knowing that, I'm faced with the dilemma tonight of starting Love or Stroud, yeah. Love or Stroud, and I'm starting Stroud because I know he's going to play.
I would do the same thing. That's exactly what I would do.
Game, so that's I'm acting as if Love might play half a game. That's what I see. And I don't think it's smart to start him. Yeah, they have their bye week in week 10, but I would much rather give him 2 weeks of rest. Let him heal himself. It's a groin, man, that needs rest. That doesn't need pushing it to the limit. And if you give him 2 full weeks of complete rest, that should do it. That should be enough for that stretch run. They want him down the stretch. These games, yeah, they're important and they matter, and it's against the division rival. But I would rather have him super healthy for 8 weeks than, hobbled this week. Maybe he's healthier when he comes back. I would want him 100%.
So I'm looking at your rankings for Love. You have him ranked 22nd right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, and this is interesting because if he is, we won't know if he's active or not until roughly 3:00 or so on Sunday. A lot of these guys, we'll have to make a call on, like Tunga Vailoa, Joe Flacco, Winston, Rodgers tonight. That's another one. I think you're better off. You just got to choose the guy that's starting the sure thing, right? Because Jordan Love, as you pointed out, Kev, is no sure thing to make it through this game. There is a very real possibility that LaFleur might be cooking up 2 game plans in case Love re-injures his groin or can't go. You have to have a backup plan in that game if Love goes down. And to that point, we're breaking ties against Jordan Love. We're probably breaking ties against Jaden Reed. We're probably breaking ties against Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft's maybe not the greatest example, especially for FFPC leagues, but breaking ties against Romeo Dobbs, because all these things that we're saying with Love affect those guys directly. Reed, I know he's the most talented guy, but even Reed, I would have question marks this week with the late game as well.
If Love is healthy, Reed is more like top 15, let's say. Maybe not top 12, but he's top 15. So I've dropped him 5 spots already, and if it's confirmed that Love is not 100%, I should probably make Reed wide receiver 25 right now. But
I just think to me, it's not a matter of is Love healthy or not. To me, it's a matter of how healthy is he. I think he is going to be playing hurt no matter what. But I also think about how conservative that Green Bay medical staff has been over the years. They are not going to put him out there unless he can protect himself. To your point, they have bigger issues, right? They want him healthy down the stretch. Now, if Green Bay loses this game, they drop to 0-2 in the division, and it's going to be almost impossible for them to get that top seed in the NFC because the Lions will be up on them. Because they'll already be down to 2 games in the division. Then you're looking at a 5 seed, right? Best case scenario, because of how good the NFC North is. So this is a huge game for Green Bay. I also don't want to mess around with a potential Love injury that could trickle down to the rest of the players, not necessarily running backs, but the receivers for sure. Erring on the side of caution are Kev Wheeler and Eric Balkman here tonight. Let's move on to Jameis Winston and talk about him. Daniel Oyefusi said that Winston is the starter going forward. He is a guy that put up buku numbers last week. He's a guy that we've been rooting for to take over this Browns offense over Deshaun Watson, because Watson has been so bad. And we knew that Winston does not necessarily protect the ball that well or care about protecting the ball that well. But what he does do is pump the ball down the field, and he puts his receivers in positions where they can he gets the ball to the receivers in positions where they can make plays. And that happened last week. Tillman, Moore, Judy, and Njoku, like all these guys. And Winston put up a 300 plus receiving yards. I have to play Winston in a league this week because I have Brock Purdy on a bye and really no other good alternatives. I feel good about it, though. And I feel good about this Browns offense going forward. The major question for me is, and we'll get into this later on, I don't know who the lead receiver is going to be. Could be Tillman, could be Moore, could be Judy. Might be Njoku. He's got an ankle injury now, so we'll have to look at that. But your thoughts on Jameis Winston and this Browns offense going forward, Kev? How bullish are you on Winston, a player you have as your 18th ranked quarterback this week?
Let's say I'm tentatively bullish. I've been very bullish on Winston over the years. I'm a fan. I really think that post LASIK, he hasn't had his full shot at a starting role. He looked great. He looked good last week. There were 4 balls that should have been intercepted.
Should have been picked. You're right. Yes.
But that's always the risk. And quite honestly, in fantasy, we don't care that much about it as long as it doesn't get him benched, or if you're in some obscure league that's -3 for interceptions, that could be deadly. But yeah, interceptions don't hurt that much in fantasy, but yards and touchdowns, which he gets, count a lot. So yeah, I'm tentatively bullish on him. His next 6 games don't match up that great. And this week he has the Chargers, and they've been pretty decent against the pass. It's hard to say. I could move him up. I think the only reason I haven't is there's a lot of decent quarterbacks with some pretty good matchups this week.
Yeah, there are.
So yeah, I if you have them, and go with your gut, because just like in preseason rankings, like the quarterback 5 to 18 are pretty much the same. And pretty volatile. Any touchdown either way could really adjust. So if you're a Winston zealot, just start him.
Yeah.
If you're in a 2 QB league, definitely start him. But I would also say, if you can get good value for him, you can trade him too, because he does. If we look at his next 6 games, let me take a look real quick here. He has the Chargers this week, which is a difficult matchup, not impossible. Then his bye week. He has New Orleans, which is a decent matchup, but then he has Pittsburgh, Denver, Pittsburgh, Kansas City. That's kind of a gauntlet. I guess Kansas City is more of a run defense, but those 2 games against Pittsburgh are going to be tough. And Denver's got a pretty good defense in between there. And the organization is the owner, I think, wants Donovan Peoples-Jones or Dorian Thompson-Robinson to get some runs. So it's not, yes, for now he has a clear path, but if he hits that gauntlet and starts throwing, gets on a 30 interception rate, you're probably going to see them switch to the young guy to see what they have in him.
And I think, like, for fantasy purposes, the last thing we want is we finally got our wish with Winston. The last thing we want is to have that taken away by DTR, right? Later in the season, it'd be awful. But I think you have to understand, like, going in, that is a very real possibility. He is not an end all be all. He just because this is better for the Browns doesn't mean it's going to last or continue to last, even if Winston's the starter, as you pointed out. Not the greatest schedule that's upcoming for Jameis Winston so far this year. But I'm excited for him this week. We'll see what happens with him. Like you said, there's a lot of different quarterbacks that have pretty good matchups. It's not a great one for Winston, and it's a low total in that 42.5. But, he's at home. Just let it rip, Jameis. That's all we ask. Just let it rip.
And the more I think about it, the Chargers have started throwing more, so there might be a little bit more turnover. The game might speed up a little bit from what they've been doing. The Chargers, they love to run, but I think they're starting to realize what they have in Herbert. But then again, if that's the case, I need to move Herbert up, and maybe I have to move him ahead of Winston too. So it's all the rankings game gets a really like, okay, let me move him up. But if I'm going with that game script, what about the other guy? And so we'll see. We'll see.
I was reading at wheelrouteff.com today. You had an interesting note about the Commanders running back. So this past week, Austin Eckler in on 57% of the snaps, Brian Robinson in on 47%. Now, in the first 3 games this season, as you pointed out, Brian Robinson led the Commanders running backs in snap counts. However, since week 3, Kev, it's been a different story. Are we sleeping on Austin Eckler? Because the Commanders are certainly seeming to utilize him a little bit more than Robinson.
Yeah, after I wrote that, I looked a little bit deeper into it, and I don't think we're necessarily sleeping on him. Fantasy football is a touchdown-based game, and Brian Robinson gets the goal line work. He scores the touchdowns. Eckler with 50% of the snap share, he's definitely getting targeted. But Brian Robinson is still being utilized more. Brian Robinson was hurt the 1 week. He came back and it had a slow game. And last game, I think he had 16 touches or more. Mm-hmm. But I kind of, after I wrote that, I thought it was interesting. But even if it's a 50-50 timeshare, I think Brian Robinson is going to get the high value touches.
And it kind of depends upon the game script, right? Like, and who they're playing. Obviously, if the Commanders are playing with a lead, then we're going to see them utilize Robinson more. But if they're in catch-up mode, I mean, it just behooves them to get Austin Eckler in space and him for him to catch checkdowns from Jaden Daniels, which granted does not happen a whole lot because Daniels loves to take off running instead of checking the ball down. But there is something to be said for that. Commanders this week, 4-point favorites in New York against the Giants. So you would think that that's probably going to be a positive game script for Robinson and not necessarily Eckler going forward. We do have breaking news here tonight. We often don't get breaking news, but this just popped up. Jourdan Rodrigue, who covers the Los Angeles Rams, I believe for ESPN. Puka Nacua was scheduled to do his weekly press conference today. However, he did not do it because he left practice with a knee injury today, per a team official. That's who's telling Jourdan Rodrigue this. She says that he was listed as limited on the injury report, and Sean McVay will be speaking with the media tomorrow to give us an update on what's going on with Nacua. So this is another thing that we have to deal with about, injuries and then what happens tonight. What are you doing now? Tank Dell is probably if you're weighing Tank Dell or Puka Nacua, how do you feel about that tonight, Kev? Is the guy that you want to play Dell over Nacua, knowing that there's now a non-zero chance that Nacua might not play this week?
Man, Nacua, he's been a rough call the past 2 weeks now. Yeah, that's so this feeds into what I was saying before about moving the rankings of my guys up 1 or 2 spots because we don't know about the news that's coming. If I had the choice of Puka Nacua or Tank Dell. I put it this way. If I have Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, and Tank Dell, I'm starting them tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, your decision isn't between Puka and those guys. If you have those three guys, start them.
Right.
You can make a decision on Puka later. There's 2 or 3 or 4 wide or more wide receivers that you're going to start every week. So, yeah, you might be thinking, oh, should I start one of these 3 guys? I wouldn't normally if Puka was in. We don't know if Puka's in. So start those guys if that's your next best player. I mean, chances are you're starting Wilson, you're starting Adams if you have and Dell is your fringe guy, right? Like
right.
And but right now I have Tank Dell ranked as my wide receiver 18. I bumped him up since the show sheet, but yeah, so I'm starting him automatically anyway. Like,
so there's no like, I mean,
if Dell's your flex choice, you got a really good team.
You got a really good team, exactly. So, and I think that's the question tonight. Like I guess for FFPC players, who would we be considering starting over Puka Nacua? If your best option is tonight, I think it's to be the tight ends, right? It'd be Dalton Schultz. It'd be Tyler Conklin, right? That's where it gets tough. You're still playing Wilson and Adams and Tank Dell and all these guys. You're playing Breece Hall. You're playing Joe Mixon. I think that the only step downs, and maybe this is a small plurality of people that are trying to figure out, do I play Nacua or do I play Conklin or do I play Schultz tonight? Now, what do? Do we take the guys that are guaranteed to play? I mean, I just got to believe that there's somebody else that you can play on Sunday.
Correct. Yes. I'm not digging that deep to worry about, who I'm going to start. Like, quite honestly, those guys you could replace. Schultz is going to have some value. I moved him up. I am now ahead of most of consensus, but I even have him ranked I'm even with consensus. He's tight end 13. So he's definitely startable, but I'm not putting him in the flex just because Puka may not play on Sunday. Like, there's got to be somebody else. There's got to be another wide receiver that we can figure out there's got to be a wide receiver somewhere on waivers or somewhere on your bench that, worst comes to worst, you can plug and play. Now in FFPC, you might want to contemplate Schultz, right?
Because of no Diggs, no Nico Collins. Yeah.
But definitely, so he would be your tight end you would want to start him in the tight end spot tonight anyway, right? We don't want to start anybody in our flex spot tonight.
Right. And well, with the FFPC, you can still move those guys around. I know there are some there are some other sites out there that don't allow you to do that, but you can do that with the FFPC. I also got this too, and I haven't found the source, but apparently a team official said the knee injury was to the same knee that caused him to go on IR this season as well. So that's also concerning. Now, maybe they're playing it safe. We don't know, but we just won't find out until Sean McVay speaks to the media tomorrow. I do want to get in some questions from YouTube and Twitch here. Danny Daido, should I start Mixon and Breece Hall tonight or sub 1 for J.K. Dobbins? We can look at your rankings here, Kev, for running backs, and I think that's the easiest way to look at this. You have Dobbins ranked 24th this week. Breece Hall is up at 6. Joe Mixon is why am I not seeing Joe Mixon? He's at 8. You bumped him, but you bumped Mixon up, right?
Yeah.
Slam dunk.
But I had Mixon at 10. I just bumped him up 2 spots.
All right.
Just thinking about the Jets defense isn't as strong as I was reacting to when I originally did it. But I'm definitely starting Breece Hall and Joe Mixon. Absolutely. And maybe I might be a little bit low on Dobbins, but he's starting to fade lately too.
He's at the point of his career where he's just not built to take on the workload that Jim Harbaugh has been giving him, right?
I mean, has he ever been built to do that?
That's another great point too. Yeah.
And I'm a huge Dobbins fan. I had him on so many dynasty teams, and quite honestly, last year I bought him on 2 more right before he got hurt. And it's like, so there's a love-hate relationship there. Same with Chubb. I love them both for years, and they have just annihilated me time after time after betrayed my love. But yeah, I would Mixon and Hall are starts way ahead of Dobbins. It's not even a choice.
This is interesting. Matt Deutsch, the better boss. Would you play Aaron Rodgers tonight or mess around with Jordan Love or Malik Willis on Sunday? And he also points out that his opponent has Breece Hall and Devontae Adams. Should that factor in his decision to play Rodgers over Jordan Love or Malik Willis? Now, this is the whole, I want to play the guaranteed points, right? But if you have the choice between Love or Willis, you have guaranteed points on Sunday. It's just a matter of how much you're getting. Personally, I would roll with Rodgers tonight. I think he is the better option than Willis, and quite frankly, he may be the better option over a Jordan Love that is playing hurt right now. In your rankings, you have Rodgers at 19, Love at 22. I'm assuming in this scenario, you would be playing Rodgers rather than waiting for Love on Sunday, right?
Correct. But I take into account, I am one behind ECR on Rodgers, but my thinking on Rodgers is that his back's against the wall and he has to put up something tonight. Mm-hmm. He has to win tonight. I'm not a Rodgers fan at all. But I would probably start him tonight just because I don't trust Willis enough to, he's going to put up numbers. I think you're safe either way, right? But I do think Rodgers back against the wall is going to feed Devontae Adams tonight. He's always going to feed Garrett Wilson, but I think Devontae Adams is also going to have himself at least 1 touchdown tonight, if not 2.
So I guess it doesn't really matter for fantasy. Who's the number 1 receiver for the Jets? Is it Adams or is it Wilson?
It's Wilson.
Wilson. Okay.
Yeah, it's Wilson. Adams will have spike weeks, but Wilson's going to get 10 to 12 targets every week still. Adams isn't cutting into Garrett Wilson's target share at all. Mm-hmm. Devontae Adams is going to steal. He's going to make Mike Williams obsolete. Alan Lazard probably obsolete, although Rodgers has a thing for him, so he might feed him a touchdown here and there, but mostly in garbage time or something like that. Devontae Adams is going it's a double alpha. It's an even stronger Jamar Chase T. Higgins. And it's only stronger in the sense that Rodgers begged for them to get Adams, so he needs to feed Adams soon, quick. So that's why I'm thinking tonight's the night that Adams puts up some decent numbers, even though I still have Garrett Wilson ahead because he's going to have more targets. He's younger at this point in their careers. I think Garrett Wilson's more talented, or can do more on the field. Let me say, Devontae Adams is, super talented, but he's a, step slower and not in sync after taking a couple weeks off and moving to a new team and all the games he was playing with, getting to that new team. So it's been a couple weeks now. He's settled, backs against the wall. Yeah, I think Adams will be good tonight, and so will Rodgers. So I think you're probably safe going with Rodgers over Love.
It's always been a trust thing too, with Aaron Rodgers, and he trusts Devontae Adams over the course of his career. So in a game, the Jets cannot afford to go 2-7. They just can't, and their season, quite frankly, at 2-6 might already be over. But it's for sure going to be over if they go to 2-7 tonight, because they are not finishing the season at an 8-game winning streak that gets them to 10-7. Maybe that doesn't even get them in the playoffs. So they definitely.
I can tell you this: I have loads of Tyrod Taylor on dynasty teams.
That could be interesting too. That could be very interesting as the season goes on. Let's talk about Tyler Lockett. He was limited. I haven't looked at practice reports today for the Seahawks, but I know yesterday Tyler Lockett was limited in practice with an oblique injury. And oblique injuries can be very tricky just for your normal run-of-the-mill athlete. But for a receiver, it could be even worse. Oh, and I'm just seeing this now. 20 minutes ago, Tyler Lockett was a full participant today. DK Metcalf, I don't believe practice today. I should bring this up too. And if Metcalf did not practice, that's going to be, no practice today, not even a limited practice. And Noah Fant did not practice today. Is this shaping up for a big-time Jackson Smith and Jigba Tyler Lockett week? I know there's plenty. I should look to see what you have for your rankings here. But the Seahawks this week are taking on the Rams at home, and they're 1-point dogs. The Seahawks are. Now that might change now with the Nacua injury. But your thoughts on Lockett and Smith and Jigba this week, because it's not looking great for Fant or Metcalf at this point.
Yeah, the matchup though, and I'm just taking a little. Josh Larkey tweeted out some wide receiver matchups earlier today, and I always like to look at these matchups he puts out. He didn't include Lockett on it, but JSN, the slot receiver against who are they playing? The Rams.
Rams.
The Rams.
Yep.
Gets an average of negative 3.7 PPR points compared to their normal output. So, I always think of Lockett as a slot receiver. Either one of them lining up in the slot isn't going to be great. And Bobo takes over the snaps outside when Metcalf is hurt. So, should Lockett see more targets? Yeah, but if he's banged up, I have him ranked pretty low now. He's liable, and both of them. I have JSN ranked 35 and Lockett ranked 40. I'd be hesitant to start them even with Metcalf out. They probably will move up some, but Bobo is going to see some targets too, and then he always seems to score touchdowns whenever Metcalf is out. So, they're fringe flex starts, in my opinion. Like if they've been sitting on your bench and you're stuck in a bye week, even though there aren't that many teams on bye this week.
Yeah.
You could be put, if you have Puka, you might end up starting one of them, right? Like that's what you end up with. And so if this is let's relate back to a prior thing. Like if you have Puka and you have either JSN or Lockett and you're thinking about starting Schultz, really, so that becomes your choice. Do you want to wait for You could wait for JSN or Lockett. They don't have the greatest matchup, but they should see the targets. And we've been waiting for JSN for a year and a half now. So I'm not entirely optimistic that that's going to happen, especially this week where there's a bad slot matchup.
And the good thing is they obviously play each other. So you can, as you said, you can wait around for both those receivers if you have one on your team, and maybe you do, and maybe you don't. Let's see what else I have here. Okay. Let's talk Titans running backs here. I know I didn't have it on the rundown, but Permar 99 is bringing up Julius Chestnut. And part of the reason why is because Tony Pollard did not practice yesterday or today. Tyjae Spears did not practice today because, well, we don't know. This could be a thing where they just need to keep him healthy for Sunday's game because they're sure that Pollard's not going to play. But this is interesting in the fact that the Titans have not had a starting running back practice yet this week, and tomorrow's Friday. So they got to kind of figure this out. The Titans host the New England Patriots, and they are 3.5-point favorites. You would think that'd be a positive game script for whoever their starting running back is. I encourage people on one of my shows earlier today. I said, if you got an extra roster spot, pick up Julius Chestnut. I don't know what's going to happen, But if you have the means, grab them and then see what happens on Sunday. That is a 1:00 kick. How do you feel about Chestnut this week, knowing what we know about the Titans running backs right now?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about him. If you're decimated by injuries or stuck for a starter, if you have Pollard or Spears, and well, I would think one of them is going to play, right? It's not looking great for Pollard. I heard rumors that, or I saw rumors, I guess you say, that Spears was ready. They were thinking about bringing him back last week, but decided against it. Maybe I don't have him here. Yeah, I don't have any of them high. That's something I'm gonna have to look into. But yeah, I guess as a security thing, picking up Chestnut right now wouldn't be a horrible idea.
I mean, if you have the spot, you're talking about 20-man rosters in a 12-team league, maybe you do. Who I'll tell you who I would drop right now. I drop Isaac Guerrero. If I had him, I would be dropping him for Chestnut. Niners are on bye this week. McCaffrey's supposed to come back next week, and you still have Mason. So I think Chestnut is a better investment right now than Isaac Guerrero going forward. And maybe there's other players that you have like that too. I don't know. And I'm talking to the viewers, not necessarily you, Kev, because you kind of know what's going on with your teams. I want to do this here. I had some receivers to talk about here that you were either higher or lower on than the expert consensus rating over at FantasyPros, where you have your rankings. I want to, because we're running out of time in this first segment. I don't know if we'll have a chance to talk about all these guys. Let's lead off with Pittman for the Indianapolis Colts right now. Right now in your rankings, you have him at 20th. I'm showing that's 5 spots higher than ECR right now. Can you tell me a little bit about why you're more bullish on Pittman than some of the other analysts that are out there?
Right. So I bounced some of these guys around. On my website, it's showing I have them ranked 23rd, but 8 spots ahead of consensus. Okay. So really what this is that it's Thursday, so more people are entering their rankings and they're adjusting for Flacco. They had not had the idea that Flacco, or I'm sorry, wait.
Yeah, they're adjusting for Flacco.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, you got it.
I adjusted for Flacco quicker than the rest of them. Right. I jumped them up, a bunch of spots quicker than everybody else, and now everybody else is catching up to me. And one of the other receivers you had pointed out was Chris Olave. I have him ranked 15. And when you had originally pumped it out, that was 9 spots ahead of ECR. Now it's actually 1 spot behind ECR. so it's merely me reacting quicker than ECR, or what you can say about these FantasyPros rankings is that they're nice and useful, but you really need to check them right before lock, before game time, because a lot of people over the years, I've heard rumors about like people copying off of people and people being paranoid that other people are copying their rankings or whatever. And it's just like, so they wait until the last second to enter them, or FantasyPros waits until the last second to filter them in. Which is fine and dandy, whatever. But that's, as a customer, when you're looking above and against ECR, you really got to check it last second to really see that, which is like, it's kind of disappointing. I always like to see it like when I publish, like, ooh, wow, I am really far ahead. But what you could say about Olave and Pittman is that I reacted quicker than the crowd did. The next guy you have is Jacoby Myers. Yeah. I always have Jacoby Myers. Whenever he's healthy, he outperforms ECR almost every time. So I believe he's back healthy, although that's questionable too. If I found out before game time, that he's, a game time decision, I'll probably lower him. But when he's healthy, he gets targeted. For years, the only thing that he was lacking was touchdowns. I think he in 3 years, in his first 3 years, scored like 2 touchdowns or something like that. But that was really what was holding back his fantasy rank. Like, he's a talented wide receiver. He gets targeted. And, you know, with Devontae Adams gone, he's going to see the bulk of the targets and be their first wide receiver. Well, him and Bowers are going to be the first.
Bowers would be the number one pass catcher. Myers would be the number one receiver for sure.
Right.
The way that shakes out. Before we go to break, couple of YouTube questions here. Mario Resendez, Steelers or Broncos defense rest of season. Please look at the schedule. I did. And I don't know, man. I like both of them. I mean, I guess I lean Steelers, but it's so close for me. Do you do rest of season rankings as well, Kev?
I do, but I don't usually touch defenses. And like somebody asked me a defense question for this week in my Discord today, and I'm like, look, I generally look at projections from different sites and other people that I trust. I don't spend too much time on kicker and defense. Just they're volatile week to week. You know, over a number of weeks, they can be easier to predict. Well, kickers more so than defense, but like which defense is going to score 2 touchdowns this week or next week is impossible to know. That being said, the Steelers are just a more consistent defense overall. So, and they're a more consistent team overall. So I would probably lean slightly Steelers defense over the Broncos, although I don't think the Broncos are necessarily bad.
I think they're both going to be good. I have them in plenty of my rosters, both of those. Well, I shouldn't say plenty, but I got both those defenses here and there on a lot of my rosters. So I like both of them. Go with God on this, Mario, for sure. That's the best we could say. Scott Hoyt and Max Pangelinan. I'm sorry. I'm butchering it. My apologies to you, Max. I will say we're going to get to your questions on the other side of the break, as well as our Thursday night football preview. Don't go anywhere. We're talking Texans. We're talking Jets. Everything you need to know before you submit your fantasy lineups and your weekly challenge lineups. It's coming up in about a half hour or so, so we'll get you set for that. We'll be back right here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. He's Kev Wheeler. I'm Eric Balkman. We roll on right after this.
We're telling ourselves happy stories about players we want to pick, less happy stories about players we don't want to pick. And part of that is being ready to abandon our own carefully crafted narratives when it's time to abandon them, right? Like, bail, this was not working, you know? So like we come in with super hard opinions and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. The better fantasy players are the people who acknowledge quickly that, hey, this isn't working out. Doesn't mean you have to abandon a player, but it means you have to abandon the approach. And maybe you have to go with a different player. I mean, if people were playing Stephon Diggs last year down the stretch, they were only playing him because his name is Stephon Diggs. You know, you have to be ready to acknowledge, hey, this guy's not getting the job done. I did it. Bloom and I had a big discussion about this last December, and I'm saying you can't play him right now. Right. And I know that's a hard decision to make because why? FOMO. We're going to miss out on that big game. The minute I sit this guy down, he's going to have the big game. Well, maybe. But also, while he is not having great games, there are other guys on your roster having great games. And I think that's to me, the hardest thing about fantasy is like, when do I divorce myself from my narrative? When do I tell when do I acknowledge my happy story is not coming true? I need to figure something else out. And the people who are good at that are the people who are good at fantasy football.
Welcome back to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC. He is Kev Wheeler, one of the best damn rankers over at FantasyPros.com. Check out WheelRouteFF.com for more fantasy football analysis. Kev, we had a couple of questions. Scott Hoyt, thank you for welcoming me back. We were off last week, but we are good to go for a while now, at least until Thanksgiving. I'll tell you what's going on with that as we get closer for that Thursday night show. I want to answer Scott's. No, let's do with Max's question first because I butchered his name and I feel bad. Max Pangelinan, I believe is how I pronounce it. Tank Dell or Marvin Harrison. He's got to make this decision tonight. You have these guys fairly close in your rankings right now. If I look at them, I do believe you are looking at Harrison slightly ahead of Dell right now. Right, Kev?
I just flip-flopped them. But here's the thing, though.
What's the impetus for that? Why did you flip-flop them?
It was part of the the Jets don't have a strong defense as I was originally thinking. So when I originally did the rankings, I was thinking, oh, Jets strong defense, they should be able to stop, but they've stunk in the past 3 weeks since Salah's been gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of that. He plays tonight, and what if Puka goes down? I want him one spot ahead of where I would normally rank him. So, like, literally, Tank Dell and Marvin Harrison Jr. are dead even. What I always tell people is when I have them this close, even when I have them within 3 of each other, go with your gut. Like, your gut is always going to be the better decision. I mean, unless it's like way off. If I'm like 10 spots ahead of the other guy, I would probably lean my guy. But if you have a tough decision, there has to be some kind of factor that. So if I had those two and it was really my decision, I would start Tank Dell tonight because I want to start him anyway. He's in the top 20. He's, I don't want to say a must start, but like a second tier must start. I would definitely start him tonight because then you still have the chance to start Marvin Harrison Jr. on Sunday. And we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. So when you have a high quality guy that's playing tonight, go ahead and start him. You can make another decision later.
Right, exactly. Yes. Is there any concern from you? And honestly, I should know this and I don't. Is there any concern from you about Sauce Gardner perhaps being on Tank Dell most of the game tonight? That given the fact that Diggs is out for the year and Collins is still on IR and Tank Dell is the biggest threat that the Texans have from a wide receiver standpoint, is there any concern with that for you?
My thinking on that is that if you have a highly functioning offense like Houston should have, I mean, they have a very capable quarterback. All I have to do is scheme him away from Sauce Gardner, right? Like, even if Sauce Gardner travels with him, put him in the slot, put him in motion. You can free him up for, a short burst, or there's ways to scheme people open no matter what. Yes, I take matchup into effect, but they're going to have to use him as a weapon. They have to scheme him. And Tank Dell is very schemable. Like he can play outside. He can play the slot. He's a speed receiver. He can move. He's not going to knock anybody over. When he blocks, he breaks his ankle, but
at least at the goal line.
Right. When he shouldn't be in there at all. But yeah, scheme him open. Yeah, that's what you have to do. That's, he's a versatile receiver. They should be able to do that fairly easily.
The question we have from Scott Hoyt was a quarterback one, and this is something that, I've been saying all year. We've never gotten more Patrick Mahomes questions on this show than we have this season because of how weird it is to see the Chiefs undefeated and yet Mahomes having more interceptions than touchdowns. It's wild. So his Scott's question is, he is facing a decision. Does he play Patrick Mahomes against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on, I believe, Monday Night Football, or does he play Kirk Cousins in a potential shootout? We're going to get to Permar's question about that in a little bit. Kirk Cousins is at home against the Cowboys. I think you have Cousins ahead of Mahomes, right?
Yeah, I do. And I'm just looking at it now. Like, I actually expect Mahomes to do well against Tampa Bay, but Kirk Cousins is kind of undeniable at this point. And Dallas is in complete flux. Yeah, I would go with Cousins. I mean, I do think Patrick Mahomes is kind of going to he could have a 3-touchdown game, but I feel better about Cousins having a 3-touchdown game. And
I would lean towards Cousins too. I know Kareem Hunt popped up today as I think a limited practice or no practice, but that is the Monday night game. So this is technically their Wednesday practice, which I don't get too worked up about in the grand scheme of things. So I'm with you. I think it's Cousins as well. Before we get into our Thursday Night Football preview, Permar 99 question here from about two wide receivers they have very close in your rankings. Tampa's number 1 receiver, Jalen McMillan. Does he go with him, or does he go with the Dallas number 2 receiver and Jalen Tolbert in what could be a shootout against the Falcons? You have these guys very close. I think you have McMillan slightly ahead of Tolbert, though.
One spot. Again, they're ranked pretty even. And what I would say to this guy or anybody is, if I'm on the fence or tonight, hit my Discord and ask me on Sunday morning.
Right.
There's about a dozen guys in there, and we all talk on Sunday morning. And right now my Discord is free. When it hits 100, I'm going to start charging for it. So get in there now while it's free, and definitely hit me up on Sunday mornings. Right. I actually think both of those guys are decent starts, and picking one over the other is probably going to end up being a gut call, like I said before, but I don't think either one of them are necessarily bad. I am ever so slightly lean McMillions, possibly because I'm a fan and I think he has wide receiver 1 potential.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. And
I think he can not replace Evans, but adequately fill that role.
And Rubio points out too, the total for that Dallas game is high. It's for 51.5, I want to say, which could be interesting. But I think what trumps it for me is kind of what Permar is saying. Like, McMillan is their primary receiver right now, with no Evans and no Godwin, and I usually lean to that in favor over a high total game where Tolbert's clearly, Tolbert. The thing is, he might be their number 3 option behind Lamb and Ferguson. And I don't know how much upside there is there, even in a high total game. So there you go. There was one thing. Go ahead.
They've given McMillan a rushing attempt in each of the last 2 games. Ooh. And whenever you see a team give a wide receiver a rushing attempt, it means they are really trying to put the ball in his hands.
It's a great point.
So that would be a clinching factor there. One over the other. In fact, I might have to move McMillan up.
And now you got to move McMillan. See, this is why we talk it out. We talk it out so we can figure this out.
Talking it out is great. And this is why I love my Discord on Sunday mornings too. They make me think about, oh wait, no, I would start him over him, and So yeah, I enjoy this because it fine tunes the process.
Thursday night football preview. Let's get into it. We'll talk about the Texans first. We kind of already talked about Tank Dell. I want to move off him and get to the question that Jimmy Williams posted on the YouTube chat. Xavier Hutchinson and or John Mechie have to contribute tonight. What about Robert Woods? Are there any other Houston pass catchers in the wake of the Diggs injury that A, you would roster, Kev, and B, that you would maybe look to flex out tonight, especially the 3 that Jimmy mentioned? I happen to just reveal my thoughts on it. I'm going to look elsewhere. I don't own any of those players in any of my leagues. I did notice in a lot of my I shouldn't say a lot, but in a few of my KFFSC leagues, John Mechie went for some significant money last night in waivers. So there is that. I find him hard to trust here. I'm good with Dell. I'm good with Schultz. Outside of that, I'm looking elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm not starting any of them tonight if I can help it. I think John Mechie has all of the, dynasty guys rooting for him.
Right. Yeah.
Just because he's been through so much. And I would love to see Mechie. I mean, besides the fact that I probably have him on taxi squads for the past couple of years on several dynasty teams, I want to see him do well. And Woods is dust, and Hutchinson hasn't done anything. He's had the opportunity, hasn't done anything. So Mechie is the only one that I would consider rostering at this point. I definitely wouldn't consider starting him tonight.
Yeah, I think you talk about these guys that have to step up in the wake of the Diggs injury and with Collins still out. But I look at tonight, this is not an easy matchup. And I know we're talking about the Jets defense in a little bit. It's not an easy matchup. And Stroud, I think, isn't he fairly low in your rankings, Kev?
Yeah.
You have him in the 20s, right?
Yeah. But I am starting him over Jordan Love.
Right. But I mean, some of
And
these
that was
other
the tough
guys, like,
decision.
you know, Flacco and Winston and Bo Nix and all these guys, Prescott, those guys are all above Stroud right now.
Yeah, I mean, they throw the ball around with reckless abandon, some of them. Like, and the Houston offense is playing safe. And I, you know, I do believe that Dell is going to have a good game, but I think that's the only one that's got a Stroud. But again, they're not going to go gangbusters. So at best, at the most, Stroud throws 2 touchdowns, and he's not running anywhere. He's a pocket quarterback. So, yeah, of any of the Houston players, it's probably a Mixon night more than any of them.
I hate to start a quarterback and just root for him to hit a floor. Like, I want those guys hitting ceilings, and Stroud, you'd be rooting to hit a floor tonight. I don't like that at all.
Right.
Let's flip the script. Let's go over to the Jets side of the ball here. You brought this up on your website, wheelrouteff.com. Breece Hall last week, 16 carries, 80 yards. Or did you bring this up? Maybe you did. I might be wrong. 16 carries, 80 yards in the loss to the Patriots last week. Had 1 catch for 9 yards. Do you have any qualms about Breece Hall right now, and throw in the whole Braylon Allen aspect of this? Obviously, if you have Hall, you're starting him, but in a game like the FFPC Weekly Challenge, do we maybe shy away from a guy like Hall because of how much Allen has been involved in this backfield, Kev?
Yeah. So for the first 2 games after Salah was gone, they had Breece Hall's utilization sorry, up around 70-80%, but that's dropped down to 57% last week, just for 1 week. And when Salah was there, they were using Braylon Allen. One game, I think they used him on just like 40% of the touches, but I think that was a blowout game. Regardless, they want to save Breece Hall a bit. I mean, they want him healthy for the stretch
and now
run.
it's like for what? What are they saving him for? You know what? 2
Well,
and 6.
well, that's the other thing too. If they lose this week, they want to use both of them so they don't get either one of them hurt and set them up for success next year, right?
Yep.
So like they want to save. He's Breece Hall started out his career with an ACL. They want to win, but they want to, if they're going to have a stretch run, which they planned on having a stretch run. I mean, I think the Jets inside the locker room either have to believe they're going to win out or pack it in, right? This is the week. Tonight's the game. It's push or shove. So yeah, you want to win, but you don't want to get Hall injured in the same respect either. And Braylon Allen's a more than adequate backup. I'm thinking there's a possibility either the new regime was just so gung-ho Breece Hall, but then they lose 2 games too. So like they have to utilize Braylon Allen. That's all there is to it. Maybe Braylon Allen was hobbled a little bit and we had just never heard about it. The way NFL teams are this year, keeping everything secret until the last second, I wouldn't doubt that Braylon Allen maybe had some bumps and bruises that nobody said anything about. But I think going forward, you're probably going to see a 60-40 split or something around there, 55-45 maybe even, just to keep Breece Hall fresh and healthy. And I think in the long run, it certainly benefits him. You're going to see more breakaway runs. He's going to have that burst instead of, seeing the ball 20 times a game, getting worn down at the end game. There's no reason for him to see, over 20 touches in a game. There really isn't. Let's keep his legs healthy. Braylon Allen is big, strong, and can get you that 4 yards in a cloud of dust every damn time. So why not use Braylon Allen as much as you can?
I think I don't want to say it could have been the plan all along, but once the Jets found out what they had in Allen, they're like, hey, we got 2 really good running backs here. Let's utilize them, keep them fresh as, for not only this season, but for their careers. optimally using them in like a 60-40, 65-35 split or whatever. That could be what we're looking at. Garrett Wilson, you pointed this out on your website. I know this for sure. 2 games so far he's played with Davante Adams. Just under 15 fantasy points a game, 99% of the routes, 27% target share, and 56% of the team air yards. There are a lot of people that were concerned with Garrett Wilson's fantasy viability after the Davante Adams trade, knowing, the relationship on and off the field that Rodgers had with Adams. The death of Garrett Wilson has been quite a bit exaggerated quite a bit, right? Because Wilson's still crushing it. And we can start both these guys, Wilson and Adams, with pretty good confidence tonight. We touched on it in the first hour a little bit, but I'll let you go off on it again. Wilson, great start. Adams, great start tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Garrett Wilson, I wasn't one of those guys that Garrett Wilson's the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty this summer. There was a few of them. And there were, several highly respected individuals that had Garrett Wilson in their top 5 receivers this year. And honestly, they're right. Like I have him in the top 10 for sure, probably 7th overall to start, 7th or 8th or something like that. I had him, on the edge of the first round, beginning of the second. But yeah, he's top 5 wide receiver going forward, dynasty wise, for sure. I would never take Garrett Wilson out of the lineup. Davante Adams will come around. But yeah, they're both gonna see a vast majority of the target share. They're gonna see both over 25% of the target share. Super narrow target tree.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And Aaron Rodgers does have tunnel vision to the guys he trusts, and it's clear he trusts both those guys in this offense for sure. Jesse Winchester watching us on YouTube tonight. Aaron Rodgers or Baker Mayfield? He has to make this call in the next 9 minutes. Looking at your rankings, I think you have Mayfield slightly ahead of Rodgers. However, what's the old phrase? A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, or something like that. We know you're taking Mayfield, even though Rodgers is playing tonight.
Yeah. No, I mean Mayfield's definitely playing on Monday.
Well, but we don't. There's a lot of stuff that could happen, Kev. Maybe he gets food poisoning. Maybe he sits out the game in protest that he wishes Mike Evans was out there. I don't know. A lot.
Yeah, you're right, and he doesn't have his guys.
But you're still.
I would stick with. You're right. It's a tough choice. Let's do this.
Tonight's game, 43.5 point total. The Jets are 2.5 point favorites. Monday night, 46 point total. However, the Chiefs are 8.5 point favorites. This should be a positive game script for Mayfield. He should be threatening 300 yards. Aaron Rodgers hasn't had a 300-yard game since like the Jimmy Carter administration. It's been forever, right? Mayfield is the higher upside. I'm with you. I like go with your gut on this. I think it is Mayfield over Rodgers.
I'm definitely Mayfield over Rodgers. Like I just think at this point in their careers, he's a better quarterback, even without his guys. I feel better about starting Mayfield. I can't believe I'm actually saying that. But
well, Scott Hoyt said it before. He's like, doesn't it sound weird to say Kirk Cousins over Patrick Mahomes? Yes, but this is the NFL we're living in. This is the NFL we're playing this year. We're playing Cousins over Mahomes. We're playing Mayfield over Rodgers. This is what we have to do. It feels weird, but we like it because it's fun.
Rodgers could end up burning me on this too.
Yeah, I don't know. That's true. He could, but I feel like I've been saying that for the last few years about benching Rodgers, and I can't really point out a game where he like blew up and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't start him. You know who I did say that about? Kirk Cousins a few weeks back when he threw for 500 yards or whatever on a Thursday night game. I regretted not starting him. I can't remember last time I said that about Aaron Rodgers. It's been years. Let's talk about Tyler Conklin tonight. How do you feel about him? I see him ranked as your number 20 tight end. Does that mean he's flex worthy in the FFPC at all against the Texans?
I don't think so. Conklin is kind of an afterthought for me, really. And he's gotten 3 or 4 targets in the last 3 games. I don't factor him in as anything special. And with Devontae Adams there, that target tree, I guess he's third in the pecking order as far as tight ends and receivers, but I don't think he's anything special. I guess it depends on your roster.
Yeah.
He has scored 2 touchdowns the past 2 weeks, but that's where he's getting his points from. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's not doing much for you.
It's true. It's very true. Jimmy Williams saying I'm wrong talking about Aaron Rodgers. Listen, he's proved me wrong before. I could be wrong about him. I'm just saying I haven't been wowed by, I haven't been upset about benching him in quite a while. That's all I'm saying.
Like, of all nights, tonight could be the night where he just all of a sudden bursts out. So if somebody's gut is telling them start Rodgers over Mayfield, go with your gut.
Yeah.
Like,
and Jimmy's saying this game has sneaky over the total field tonight. And if that's the case, then I totally get it. Bill Hollywood, you wouldn't play Braylon Allen over Rashad Bateman this week. This is an interesting one that we'd have to do here pretty quick for Bill. Yeah, I mean, full PPR, I'm playing Bateman over Braylon Allen. I know he is getting more and more touches for the Jets, but he's still a backup. Feels weird to start him over Bateman. I'm still playing Bateman over Braylon Allen.
For this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have Bateman pretty low, but I'll probably look at that. I wouldn't be surprised if
I will say this. They're playing the Denver Broncos. And Lamar Jackson has missed practice yesterday and today. And if he misses practice tomorrow, that's really bad for Bateman and, quite frankly, that whole Ravens offense. So I guess to your point, Bill, maybe you play Allen tonight if you don't want to be very risk adverse. And quite frankly, what's the ceiling for Bateman anyway? I don't know. Now I'm rethinking this. Maybe it is Allen tonight over Bateman.
That is a super tough choice.
The Ravens are 8-point favorites in that game. So even if Jackson plays, I don't know how involved Bateman's going to be. Remember, they got Deontay Johnson to go with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews on that team now too.
Right.
You know what? I'm changing it. I'm saying Braylon Allen tonight.
Yeah, I would not argue that at all. I think Bateman still sees a decent amount of playing time this week, but I think he starts to get really squeezed next week. I would have no problem starting Braylon Allen over Bateman.
Yeah, I don't
if that's really your choice. Like, if there's other players that are involved in that decision, like, I would like to hear those names too.
Right.
Because usually, like, when I get asked questions, is it this guy or this guy? And I'm like, you don't have anybody better that you could maybe squeeze in there?
Right.
But if those are your choices, and go with Braylon Allen.
Yeah.
I think
that's the play.
Like, I don't. The only hesitation there is that tonight I feel like when they get inside the 5, Rodgers is still going to target Devontae Adams in the end zone. That is kind of my bet on Devontae Adams tonight, right? So maybe that takes away from Braylon Allen, but I think I would go Allen for Bateman because Bateman's not that great to begin with, and the reason they got Devontae Johnson is because they must not think very highly of Bateman, right? Like, I don't think he's a Flowers replacement. He's going to squeeze Bateman's targets for sure. I don't know if he plays this week or not. I assume he is, but I don't think his role is going to be maximized either.
Bill's other option, Kev, is Josh Palmer at on the road against Cleveland. Do you like Allen and Bateman both better than Josh Palmer?
I
think McConkey, the way McConkey has stepped up in that offense, it's tough for me to get on board. But I've dropped Palmer in a few leagues. Like, I'm not seeing a path to success there.
I was actually thinking about Tampa Bay Trey Palmer.
Ooh,
Yeah. I would actually. I think I have Trey Palmer ranked ahead of Josh Palmer.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
I
yeah.
do.
So there you go. He's not even the best
So,
Palmer out there.
Yeah, if it's Josh Palmer, oh hell no,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, I go with Braylon Allen. Yeah. The only thing I think holding Braylon Allen back is that Rodgers is going to target Adams
when they get close. Yeah.
When they get close.
I can see that.
But,
I can see that. Let's move on. I want to do our weekly challenge week 9 lineup here right now with you, Kev. We got game time or kickoff starting in a few minutes. We'll give you updates, take you through the first quarter plus here tonight before we get out of here at the top of the hour. If you are interested in playing the FFPC Weekly Challenge, it's real easy to do so. Go to myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. There is no draft. There is no salary cap. You're just choosing your lineup of 10 or 12 players, depending upon if you want to play with kickers and defenses or without. And you can only have one player per team, so there's no stacking in this. Enter for as little as $35, win up to $2,500. You can play against 9 other teams, 29 other teams, or 99 other teams at myffpc.com, or simply scan the QR code on your screen right here that Matt Deutsch has put up on the screen as I get my fingers in the right spot. There you go. It's lighting up as I'm pointing to it because all of you people are scanning it and getting ready to play. We're going to submit a lineup tonight, Kev. Would you prefer, I always leave this up to the guests, would you prefer to submit one with kickers and defenses or without?
Let's go without.
That has been the popular choice, and that is the more popular choice for this format on the FFPC's website as well. So we will go without. This lineup that we're forming tonight, as every week, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, and 4 flexes, count them, 4 flexes to make our lineup of 10 players on this team. Kev, where would you like to start? Which position or which player? What are you thinking? And since it's kickoff, of the Thursday night game, we'll eliminate all Jets and Texans from this as well.
So I haven't really looked at this at all. I kind of
It's okay.
6:30. I opened up one of these and started thinking. Really, where I started was this. I am at the running back position. I am higher than most on Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
And I'm not higher than most on Devin Achane. But Devin Achane, I think, is that guy who's a little bit buried. That is a slate breaker, right? Like, yeah, he gets vultured by Mostert at the goal line, but we've seen 50-point games from Devin Achane, and I just since Tua's back, Achane's back. Like,
how many passes he caught? Like 6 or 7 passes for like 60, 70 yards last week. So I'm on board with Achane for sure.
And he can bust a 50-yarder receiving or running at any point in time, and that's kind of the bet. So, like, I think Achane, I don't know how you pronounce it. Achane. I love to pronounce it that way.
Right.
He's a top 12 receiver with running back, or top 12 running back every week, but he has top 1 running back upside every week. So I always like to go with the chain whenever he's a little bit lower in the rankings, or
Well, I mean, I like the way we started here with getting both running backs out of the way. We can always add more running backs later in the flex, but I kind of thought you were going to go with Kamara, and Achane makes perfect sense too, because he's the guy that can really set you apart, especially if you're playing in the 100-team format. He is the slate breaker, as you said so eloquently. So we have our running backs taken care of. A lot of different ways to go next. Kev, do you have a specific spot you want to go?
So when I'm looking at quarterback now, I generally just go from top to bottom when I look at these things. My original thought was if Lamar was healthy, I would have loved Lamar, but look at Jaden Daniels. Who do I have?
Well, so now just real quick on the Daniels tip. So he's been limited in practice this week. He did play through the rib injury last week. Is there any concern about the ribs perhaps bothering him where you would pivot and go a different direction?
So I think normally, yes, I would, but I'm originally born and raised a Giants fan, and I know that starting a quarterback against the Giants is usually a safe bet. Um, and start your defense against the Giants too. So
Right.
as a general rule, not always, but like, let me. We could go with Kirk Cousins. Actually, we were talking about him before.
I mean, I think Daniels. Well, it's difficult to say. Like, my initial reaction is Daniels is going to be more owned than Kirk Cousins, but at the same time, maybe not, because maybe this rib injury is scaring some people away. Thing is, he threw a 65-yard Hail Mary or whatever it was on Sunday, and he made it through that game, and he was running that game. So maybe the rib injury is a little bit overblown.
So another one I was hearing actually, who I don't know if you ever or know who Sacrilegious is. He's with Legendary Upside.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, maybe it wasn't him. It might have been Jacob Sanderson.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Touting Trevor Lawrence this week. Trevor Lawrence has had a couple good games in a row, and Philadelphia's defense, I believe, is weak against quarterback. Let me double check.
Yeah, Trevor. Okay, so now I will say this. I think Lawrence would be getting too cute this week.
Okay.
I think we were on a better path with the Cousins Daniels discussion. I think you were right on there. I'm good with either one. Daniels would obviously take us out of the running for Brian Robinson or Terry McLaurin, and Kirk Cousins would take us out of the Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson sweepstakes. So it hamstrings us a little bit more there. But I'm good with either one. Your choice.
Let's. I started to lean more Kirk Cousins. Let's pop in Cousins for now.
Okay.
If we get to the point where we want London or Bijan, we could always switch that to Daniels.
Revisit that for sure.
I'm not really interested in Brian Robinson or McLaurin necessarily.
Okay.
Like I like McLaurin in a stack, but we can't stack here. So
right. Okay, so we'll put Cousins in for now. That works. I'm good with that. And he's still. I mean, like, I think some people would say, "Well, you're getting too cute with Cousins." I don't think we are. I think it's fine to put him in and be good with that.
I'm thinking about this in the 100-person tournament,
right? Which is fine. Yeah. Just I'm going to make a note of that too.
If you're playing in one of the smaller ones, yeah, maybe Cousins is getting too cute. But even then, well, if you're playing in the 10-team one, yeah, Cousins is probably getting a little bit too cute. But in a 100-person tournament, I think you need to not scroll down massively, but like I have Kirk Cousins as my QB6, right? The QB6 could easily be the QB1.
Yep.
And in here, just in the room we're picking from, it looks like Kirk Cousins is ranked as the QB10. So the likelihood of, a lot of people owning or rostering Kirk Cousins is minimal. So we're differentiating, which we need to do in a slightly larger tournament scale.
Prime Video has gone to commercial. The Texans had something going, but the drive stagnated inside their own 45. They have punted it away. The Jets have taken over 1st and 10 on their own 11. Tank Dell already with a catch for 16 yards. Dalton Schultz, a catch for 6 yards as well. The Jets about to get the ball here. We'll give you updates on that. Kev, would you like to look at receiver? Is there anybody that's standing out for you there?
I need to scan real quick. I had jumped to tight end just to see if there was anything interesting there. Actually, let me look here.
I mean,
So
okay, go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. Like, the way FFPC has these players ranked,
Mm-hmm.
do people playing these tournaments, do they usually roster the higher ranked guys heavier? Is that, or is it,
I think now I don't have a lot of statistical backing in this, but based on what I know for the 100-team lineup, I don't think that you're going to see the higher ranked players rostered in a more heavy sense than others. Like I think that's negligible at best. So I wouldn't consider.
Because I'm just looking at this and I see in this room Kelsey is ranked as the 7th tight end, and I have him ranked first this week.
Well, I mean, and the other thing too, we already have our quarterback taken care of. I don't know if we want to go with Hopkins. Kareem Hunt is dealing with something right now as well. I mean, if we're going to go with a Chief in a high-scoring game, that would be my pick. And remember, we can pick up to, not that we would do this, but we could pick up to 5 tight ends. So it's not like Kelsey precludes us from taking another tight end, whereas Kirk Cousins at quarterback precludes us from taking another quarterback.
Yeah, let's go with Kelsey at tight end.
Okay, putting him in right now. Does the Puka Nacua thing, does that make you want to pick Cooper Kupp in this at all as a potential target monster against the Seahawks on Sunday?
Sure.
I mean, I guess Nacua could practice tomorrow and everything's A-okay too. That's the other thing to be worried about.
And you could always flip it for before game time, right?
Yep, exactly.
You can adjust these lineups
all the way up to 1:00 on Sunday. Yes.
So here's the thing. I didn't watch much of the game, but Kupp looked slow. I'm sure he'll get a couple of more targets, but he just looked a step behind in the Minnesota game. So while I'm not against it, I wouldn't be so gung-ho for it either.
Well, let's I don't want to do that then. Let's not pick players we're not gung-ho about. I want to be gung-ho because there's all these different options we can go with. Let's skip Kupp. Let's go elsewhere at wide receiver. And the other thing too that I like to do, and this is kind of cookie cutter analysis, but I do like to look at the totals from the game and make sure we have pieces from those teams. The Dolphins Bills game is at 49. Cowboys Falcons 51.5. Those are two of the juicier ones of the week. You got Rams Seahawks at 48, Lions Packers 48.5. There's a few 46s and 45s in there as well. So there's a lot of different ways we could go.
I like Justin Jefferson against Indianapolis.
I actually do too. I think that is going to be. I just kind of like the Vikings offense in general that game. Even Hawkinson too. Hawkinson would be an interesting guy to flex out. I don't know how you feel about him. There's a lot of unknowns, but with a 100-team contest, maybe you want a little bit unknown. I don't know. And now we can't do it because we have Jefferson. But I'm just saying for those people that don't choose Jefferson.
Yeah, that's a good pivot. I might give it 1 week.
I would too. Yeah.
Especially coming back from that extensive an injury. And I know they've kind of waited, and he could certainly have a massive week against Indianapolis. But if they're going to blow him out, I don't think they overuse him in week 1. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. It absolutely makes sense. I want to give you an update on the game. 3-and-out for the Jets. Incomplete pass to Devontae Adams. Jimmy Williams saying it was a bad pass by Aaron Rodgers. Breece Hall drops it on 2nd down, and then he is sacked on 3rd down. The Jets have punted, and the Texans now have the ball 1st and 10 at their own 47. 11:44 to go in the first quarter. So we have our first receiver. We have our tight end. Let's fill in that second receiver spot here, and then we'll handle the flexes. Kev, your thoughts here? I'll just bring up a few guys that we could look at based on teams that we don't have represented. We could look at, I think the Packers are a little too volatile for a receiver. I mean, Josh Jacobs would be interesting, I guess. But we could go Amon-Ra St. Brown for Detroit. We could go. I know. Well, we're actually kind of down on the Seahawks receivers, so let's stay. I like Kenneth Walker better anyway, so let's stay away from them. We could look at CeeDee Lamb. He's still out there. We don't have a Cowboy. Tyreek Hill. Amari Cooper's got the wrist thing, so I don't know how crazy we want to get there. Those would just be a few of the receivers I'd be looking at.
So let's go with CeeDee Lamb as a bring back to Kirk Cousins, right?
Yep.
Not that makes a massive difference, but it's that little edge.
It is.
Yeah. And then I was scrolling. We could certainly Cooper Kupp still isn't out of the question.
Honestly, the only other guy I'd look at there would be Kyron Williams. I mean, I have no interest in Nacua right now.
Right. Yeah. With Nacua questionable. And actually, I kind of like the idea of let's put Kupp in.
Okay.
And like the viewers can certainly put Kupp in now. If we find out Puka Nacua is healthy, we can always just flip him right before game time.
If you find out Nacua is active, do you actually prefer him over Kupp?
I do. He just looked electric.
Came back.
I mean, first game back, and he was on a pitch count. He was only utilized, like I think he saw 44% of the snaps, if that's the right number. He looked amazing with the ball. He had 9 targets on 44% of the snaps. Like that's just ridiculous. And not just targeted, but really did something with the ball. And the one thing I'll say about Nacua is the only thing that really keeps him from being like mentioned in the top 5 receivers is that he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. He gets vultured on quite a few touchdowns. If that happens to break his way, there's no limits to what he could do. So, but if he's out, yeah, you're right about Cooper Kupp seeing quite a few more targets. And I have Cooper Kupp ranked in my top 10 either way. So, and actually, even if Nacua is playing, Cooper Kupp is a nice little pivot if you're in larger tournaments. So.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. We have now 3 receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and a quarterback, 3 flex spots to play with here. And we have we got a few minutes. I want to hit the start sits, but we got a few minutes to pump this together here, Kev.
Where do you want to go? Do you want to stick with receiver?
I want to look at teams here if we could, and just make sure that we're representing all the big time games. Miami, Buffalo. We do not. Oh, we do have a Dolphin.
We have a Dolphin.
Would you consider Dalton Kincaid here? Would you consider James Cook here? I guess I probably like Cook a little bit better than Kincaid. Bills are 6-point favorites at home.
Let's go with Cook.
Okay. Put him in. He had a good week last week. Seems to be holding off Ray Davis just fine.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people concerned after he had that big game, after Davis had the big game with Cook out. So let's put him in. We got Atlanta and Dallas are covered. I thought there was one other big game. Do you want to look at Amon-Ra St. Brown or Sam Laporta? We could do Gibbs or Montgomery. Lions are actually 2.5-point favorites on the road at Lambeau Field. I feel like we got to get a Lion on this team.
I don't hate any of those names.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like,
and they're all flexes. Like we can take any of them.
So the one thing, like I've never been a Jahmyr Gibbs guy until last week. I just
that 70-yard touchdown did something for you.
He looked shot out of a cannon like I haven't seen in a while, and just he just looks good. He looks like he looks comfortable. The team looks comfortable with him. I've in the past couple seasons I've been more of a Montgomery guy, and it's paid dividends.
Mm-hmm.
But man, yeah. Gibbs looked electric. ARSB, I think he's very consistent, but I feel like Laporta, they got to start to really work him in at some point. Like, he's just been, I do want to see it from Laporta again first, though. So I was going to say ARSB, but let's go for the explosive Gibbs if you want to stick.
Yeah, I put Gibbs in there. And the thing is with St. Brown, I haven't seen a lot of these, double-digit catch games for 100 yards and a touchdown. He's been all right, but, I mean, he hasn't been like a world beater like he was for portions of the season last year. So I do like the idea of putting Gibbs in there as a pick to win type guy.
Right.
And Laporta, for whatever, I want to see it first. Until he gets worked in more, I really don't want to be deploying him in a format like this. So I'm with you on Gibbs. By the way, there's a injured Jet in the game right now. There is a roughing the punter, I should say, penalty on the Jets, which caused the Texans to keep the ball. They have it 3rd and inches right now at the Jets 40, 9:19 to go in the first. We have one spot left, Kev. Is there anybody that is sticking out to you?
Oh, yeah.
Who is it?
AJ Brown.
Okay, AJ Brown. We'll put him in. And why do you like him as our final player here this week?
So he is
at home against the Jaguars right now, 7.5.
When he's healthy, when he's playing, he's almost guaranteed 100 in the touchdown. And he has the potential to break the slate at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a sieve. Yeah. So like, I whenever I do these things, I join the 100 person because I'm more of a tournament type.
Right. For sure.
And I'm looking for the most explosive upside I can find. I'd like to find it for cheap because I'm frugal, but I'm more than willing. I mean, everybody's the same price in this, but like there's probably quite a few people that are rostering AJ Brown in this thing, but he is extremely likely to go off and dominate the slate. So yeah, I mean, I have him ranked 4, but he could easily be one by a lot.
He could be one totally, and I think we have a lot of upside. Once again, the team that Kevin and I put together: Kirk Cousins at quarterback, Alvin Kamara, Devon Achane, James Cook, and Jahmyr Gibbs are the running backs. The receivers are Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp, and AJ Brown, and then we got Travis Kelce in at tight end. I like it. And by the way, you can enter this lineup if you like. MyFFPC.com. It's the weekly challenge. No draft, no salary cap. You can play the slim or the classic format with kickers and defenses. One player per team. Enter for as little as $35. Win up to $2,500. This, we are recommending you enter in a 100-team format. You can enter it in whatever format you want, quite frankly. But you can enter it as is or maybe tweak it. Jimmy Williams in the YouTube chat saying, hey, what about flexing Cade Otton, which would be interesting coming off a big week last week. No Evans, no Godwin this week. That would be an idea. You could put him in. Maybe you don't like Cooper Kupp, so you put Cade Otton in instead, and there you go. That's your team. MyFFPC.com or scan the QR code on your screen right now that Matt Deutsch has thrown up there, MyFFPC.com, and play all the way up until 1 o'clock on Sunday. Speaking of 1 o'clock on Sundays, we do have some significant start or sit questions. We'll get to that and your questions and more. We'll give you updates on the Thursday night game, breaking the action there, breaking the action here as well. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly. He is Kev Wheeler from FantasyPros and WheelRouteFF.com. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. Something called perpetual reloading to ensure something called a permanent championship window with FFPC Dynasty Leagues. How do we make sure that perpetual reloading is what we're doing in our rookie drafts every year to make sure that we're always competing for titles year in and year out?
Yeah, so we always have this tension between playing a little bit for the future and playing for the present. You'll have drafters jump into the startup. They'll draft the veterans. They're trying to win in that first year. Sometimes they do. I don't want to in any way, shape, or form suggest that that doesn't work, because you see some of those teams compete and win titles. And yet, when we're thinking about the best way to control your chances to win, you want to be in the playoffs year after year. You want your championship window to always be open. You don't want to get to a point where you build, and then have a couple of years where you're going for it and then you're rebuilding again. You want to be in it every year. You want to get as many buys as possible so you don't have to compete in that quarterfinal round. You build a more powerful team. You can't control the injury that you have to the key player that cost you a title, or the 50-point game that a non-elite player like Amari Cooper scores and knocks you out. You can control having one of the best teams every single season. The way that you do that is you build depth in your player talent across all those positions. You build depth in your picks. In order to execute some of those types of things, you trade down, you trade peak players, you trade young players. You've got to trade things that people want. A lot of times I think when people are trying to reload or rebuild, they're trying to trade distressed assets at a level that the rest of the group isn't interested in, and then you feel like you can't move. If you're going to make trades, you got to trade things that people want. You can also trade 2 for 1.
What we missed some action in the Thursday night game. So giving an update here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. Eric Balkman, Kev Wheeler from WheelRouteFF.com. The Texans were driving. Joe Mixon ends up 4 carries for 40 yards, and they were inside the red zone. And then C.J. Stroud, I think they gave credit to Quinnen Williams on the fumble on the strip sack. Will McDonald recovers it, and the Texans turn the ball over. Then on the very next play, Breece Hall gets the ball, busts up a 12-yard gain. He fumbles the football. However, he was lucky enough to fall on it. Still Jets football. 1st and 10 from their own 30 for the Jets. 7:18 to go in the first. A flurry of plays there, but Mixon looking good so far this game. Stroud 2 of 7, 22 yards. Rodgers 0 of 2 for 0 yards. Obviously, Tank Dell that 1 catch for 16 yards. Let's get into some start sits here, Kev, for the remainder of the show. We'll try to pound out as many of these as we can get to. And obviously, you can cite your rankings. You can get Kev's rankings, wheelrouteff.com, and, of course, fantasypros.com. They're posted on there right now. I'll throw these at you. Ramondre Stevenson is in Nashville this week to take on the Titans. If you have him or Rachaad White at Kansas City on Monday night, which one are you playing?
They're both miserable matchups, but I guess I'm going to go with Ramondre. Especially if Drake May starts, I would prefer Ramondre. Rachaad White, I think he's second fiddle to Bucky Irvin.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Q tag next to Bucky right now, but there was last week too.
I don't think he practiced today, but again, they play Monday night, so this is like the Wednesday practice. Yeah. So it is what it is. I
don't really want to start a running back against Kansas City as well. Rachaad White gets catches. I would lean Ramondre for this one. Neither one of the matchups are great, but I just think they're going to need to lean on Ramondre more, and I think Rachaad White is slowly fading into oblivion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He'll probably be the pass catching back regularly, but his carries are going to be diminished going forward.
It was after the big Sean Tucker game a few weeks back, and your former colleague over at the Go District, Dan Williamson, said the Buccaneers backfield now features Bucky, as in Bucky Irving, Tucky, as in Sean Tucker, and Sucky, as in Rachaad White. That was the trio that he put up there, which makes a lot of sense. White is still heavily involved. He catches passes. I do think I'm going to start Stevenson against that Titans rush defense. I know it can be a little stout up the middle, but Stevenson really heavily involved. And Antonio Gibson, I know, is dinged up right now. It seems like it's the Stevenson show in New England. You can't say the same about the Buccaneers for Rachaad White. Let's move on and talk Cowboys here. Rico Dowdle taking on the Falcons this week. That game is in Atlanta. If you have him or if you have Javonte Williams taking on the Ravens in Baltimore, which one are you more likely to start?
I would rather not start any running back against Baltimore. And I think Rico probably has a little fire in his belly after being, there's rumors that he wasn't really sick. He was sick. Regardless, he's the best running back in Dallas. I confident. I only have them ranked. I have them ranked back to back, but the way I'm thinking now, I would rather start Rico.
I'm with you. And I hate that we're agreeing so much tonight. It doesn't make for great television, but we do what we can. I'm not going to disagree with you for the sake of disagreeing with you. I like Dowdle better this week as well. Tyler Algier against said Cowboys at home, or Zach Charbonnet at against the Rams. And by the way, I got some more breaking news on Puka Nacua I'm going to get to in a second. But between those two players, Algier and Charbonnet, I love Kenneth Walker this week. I think he's one of the best plays that you can get at running back. However, sometimes when I like the starting running back, I got to think maybe I should like the backup as well in this scenario. Charbonnet versus Algier, who you got?
It's tough. Bijan has been getting more work and doing well with it. Algier has been seeing his role slightly reduced from the beginning of the season. He was almost, actually, he got 12 carries against Tampa Bay, didn't he? It looks like a very in flux with Algier, but then this is tough. Like you could definitely go with your gut. My gut tells me Charbonnet. He had 4 targets last week. I think I like Kenneth Walker. I have him ranked pretty high, but I think they as well are going to start to be a little bit smarter about his usage. You don't want to wear a guy like that out. You want him for the stretch run. I don't think you can actually go wrong with. I do have Algier ranked ahead of Charbonnet.
I mean, I think that like from a volume standpoint, it's Algier, right?
Yeah.
But from a catch standpoint, it's Charbonnet. But right. I'm with that high total and the fact that we've already seen Algier and Robinson used in games, multiple games this year where their touches were not very far off. I lean towards Algier because it always seems like when Walker's healthy, he always out touches Charbonnet, and it's usually not that close. If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up. The usage goes to Algier, but something in my gut tells me Charbonnet is going to start to be used more, and he gets the receptions.
Yeah.
I think they're both startable in the flex. I wouldn't feel bad about either one. It kind of just Algier is probably a safer floor.
Okay.
I'll go there.
Yeah.
I'll go there.
He is a safer floor, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to give you some breaking news here. So basically what we found out on Puka Nacua, Adam Schefter just tweeted this out a few minutes ago. The knee injury to Nacua is not believed to be serious, but his status for the game on Sunday is still up in the air. It doesn't appear to be any type of significant injury, which is good, which is what we were hoping for. And then this from the game tonight. Will Anderson was down on the field for the Texans. Trainers are attending to him. Aaron Wilson also posting on X that Tank Dell is in the medical tent on the field. And we'll give you an update on that if we get one before we go off the air. Let's go to the YouTube chat right now. Kyle Singer, full PPR, Jake Ferguson or Trey McBride, as I look at Kev Wheeler's rankings here for tight ends. You have Trey McBride ahead of Jake Ferguson. I'm going to agree with you. I think it's McBride over Ferguson this week.
Yeah, I don't particularly care for the matchup against Chicago, but I think he's head and shoulders over Ferguson, to tell you the truth. Yeah, I it's solidly McBride. I don't even like rank Ferguson. I have him at tight end 8. I would like to drop him more, but I don't necessarily. I think Ferguson has a pretty safe floor, but McBride hasn't. Has he scored even one? He scored 1 touchdown this year on a fumble recovery, I think. The tide's got to turn for him at some point.
He's being utilized so much. I mean, especially the last few weeks. You know, it's so tough to turn down that volume. I think Ferguson is interesting, but Ferguson is never going to have these McBride type blow up games. Where he's kind of steady Eddie. 6 for 70, 6 for 65, 5 for 75, and whereas McBride, he does have that 10 catch for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns in him, And Kyle's bringing up matchup wise. Yeah, I get it for sure. It's close between the two. McBride is going up against the Bears at home, and then you have Ferguson in that potential shootout in Atlanta as well. So I get it. He also had a second part of the question too: Romeo Doubs or Jalen McMillan. I don't know if he's looking at your receiver rankings, Kev, on FantasyPros.com or WheelRouteFF.com. You have these guys, I believe, back to back, McMillan and Doubs. We talked about both these guys tonight. Who would you pick to start over or between these two?
This is some tough questions.
For Doubs or McMillan for receiver?
It's just that picking between them. That's a tough choice. Put it this way: if Love doesn't start, it's definitely McMillan.
Yeah.
I
think, quite frankly, I think there's a case to be made, even if, not saying I would do this, but even if Love does start, I think like if you feel McMillan, then start McMillan. I think it comes down to me, if Love is starting, I'm going to play Doubs, and I'm going to feel good about it. But yes, I get it why somebody would want to play McMillan over him.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold it against anybody, but I think if Love plays, I'm moving Doubs up. Or if he seems healthy going into Sunday, I'm moving Doubs up higher. Yeah, I think Doubs he's kind of a must start if Love plays. Even if Love only plays a half, I feel like Doubs can be just, but since he squeaky wheeled it, he's been a focal point for them. So
right.
And even before then, he wasn't. I guess he had a little something to complain about in weeks 2 and 3, but he's a solid part of their offense, and he's here to stay. I would go Doubs if Love plays, McMillan if he doesn't.
I'm good with that. Jimmy Williams also pointing out that Tank Dell is now back on the field. He just caught a pass. That's correct. He actually is up to 2 catches for 25 yards. It was not enough for the Texans to keep a drive going. They have now punted once again. We got 3:50 to go in the first quarter. Trust me, you're not missing anything in this game. The Jets now have it. First and 10. Go ahead.
Sometimes they just go into the tent to take a poop. Like,
do they really do that? I mean, I didn't realize that was the case, but I guess that would make sense.
I mean, I'm sure it's not common. They don't choose to do it, but so, you gotta go. And if you can pull the tent up, why not? Right.
I want to bring up, let's see if I can find it here, because Jimmy Williams is just talking about it again. And I wanted to bring this up. I know it's here somewhere. I just got to scroll back. Yeah. Jimmy Williams, Josh Downs, or any Packers receiver this week. And while that seems like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Of course I'd take some Packers receivers over. The Vikings this season, while their defense has been great, they have really struggled to slow down slot receivers. And Josh Downs is probably going to be in the slot, and he's probably going to have Joe Flacco throwing to him, which is an improvement over Anthony Richardson. If Malik Willis is starting at quarterback for the Packers, then it's Josh Downs over all other Packers receivers. If he is not, if Love is starting for Green Bay, I would rank only Jaden Reed ahead of Josh Downs. I would play Downs over Doubs, Watson, Wicks, all those guys. Is that how you read it as well, Kev?
100%. 100%. I think Downs is going to have himself, and Pittman are going to have themselves healthy weeks with Joe Flacco going. So
Downs and Pittman both in your top 20 right now, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that as well. Let's see how many we can get through. We'll try to go semi-rapid fire on this. We'll go to receivers here. Keenan Allen or Cedric Tillman this week. Keenan Allen in the desert against the Arizona Cardinals. Cedric Tillman at home against the Chargers.
Holy cow. Never thought at the beginning of the season you'd be
Keenan Allen versus Cedric Tillman.
I just wanted to make sure. I do have Tillman slightly ahead, and that is where I would lean, just because the target tree for Chicago is, pretty broad. With the 3 receivers and the tight end. and Tillman seems to be a favorite of the gunslinger. So I would lean. Yeah, I'll go Tillman.
I think
His last 2 games have been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's Tillman as well. The
Yeah.
other aspect too, the Bears should be able to run on the Cardinals defense too.
Yeah.
So that affects it. Not the greatest matchup for Tillman, but I'm with you. I think the connection with Winston, what he has shown the last couple of weeks, that's enough for me. Carolina, Xavier Legette or Jalen McMillan? Another Jalen McMillan question here tonight. Xavier Legette for Carolina is going to be at home against the Saints defense. I lean towards McMillan here, Kev.
I have him back-to-back, but yeah, I lean McMillan too.
With the return, like if Thielen comes back this week, how can you play Legette?
Oh no, yeah. If Thielen comes back, and not only that, what's his name? The Jalen Coker is
Coker's been pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, he's starting to kind of eat into that. Legette looked good for the first few weeks, but all of a sudden, this Jalen Coker's popped up, and if Thielen's back, definitely that really shuts down Legette, because I'm pretty sure Thielen and Legette are playing basically the same position.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So I'll go McMillan there for sure.
You are down a little bit on Tucker Kraft this week, and I would assume you'll be even more down on him if Malik Willis plays. Does that mean, no question, you don't think about it, you're playing Kincaid over Kraft this week?
If Kraft, like I've been high on Kraft, yeah, Kincaid against Buffalo, I'll go Kincaid.
Kincaid
against
Miami. Yeah, I think he's the play over Kraft. Even if Love plays, I still would play Kincaid over Kraft.
Yeah, I like Kraft a lot. I rank him high usually. He's lower this week mainly because I don't think Love really plays, or if he does, it'll be limited. Even if Love plays, even if he had a fully healthy Love, I'm not sure I would put him above Kincaid this week.
Okay. We talked about TJ Hawkinson. We want to give him one more week, or one week just to see where we're at on him. But if you didn't have that luxury and you had to either play him or Hunter Henry, who would you play this week?
I have Hawkinson above him, above Henry.
Hawkinson over Henry.
There
is a little bit more upside there. With Hawkinson,
and that's a gut call, but I think it's going against Indianapolis, Hawkinson could easily score a touchdown. I think.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and that's the thing too. If Hunter Henry has Brissett at quarterback or Drake May, it makes a difference too. I'm very high on Drake May as a quarterback overall, and he seems to have a thing for Hunter Henry.
So if May's in at quarterback, would you play Henry over Hawkinson, or is that still not enough?
I would strongly consider it.
Okay.
It becomes a much tougher question at that point.
Let's do this. We'll wrap up tight ends. Isaiah Likely, or a guy that was picked up in a lot of my leagues in the KFFSC last night, Jonnu Smith. Who would you play there? Smith against the Bills. Likely is at home against the Broncos.
That's a tough one.
I think for me it's Smith, but I'll let you go.
I do have Jonnu one spot ahead of Likely, and it's more Mark Andrews is starting to emerge a little bit more, and Mark Andrews is now getting targeted in the end zone. So that takes away some of the touchdown upside from Likely. The one spot Denver is weak is against the tight end, so I have no problem with starting Likely. It kind of comes down to a gut call between those two. But in my rankings, I lean slightly to Jonnu Smith.
We're running out of time, so I want to skip the quarterbacks. But if you do have any other quarterback or starter sit questions in general, go to wheelrouteff.com. And of course, FantasyPros.com has all of Kev's updated rankings. You can check that out as we lead up to games on Sunday. And I think that's the best place to go, right? Wheelrouteff.com at @FF_Wheeler on the X. And of course, check out your rankings at FantasyPros.com. That's the best way to keep up with everything, what you're doing, right, Kev?
Yeah, definitely go to the website. When you're on the website, click on the little Discord, join the Discord channel. You can interact with me directly Sunday mornings and usually Thursday before games, but I had priorities this week.
And if you're, yes, exactly. And if you're if you want to cut your teeth in the fantasy industry, support at wheelrouteff.com. And maybe you can start writing with Kev and getting some of your stuff posted on there as you're always looking for talent too. Starting off, the website looks awesome. You're off to a great start here, as I knew that you would. You and Ryan and Larky and all those guys at the 33rd team. You guys do fantastic work, and it's continuing with or without him. So congratulations on that, Kev. And thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, man. Really appreciate it. We'll do it again real soon.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. That's Kev Wheeler, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank him, our producer, Matt Deutsch. We'll be back at 7 o'clock next Thursday, Eastern Time. Rotoballers, Ryan Kirksey joins me, excuse me, for the full 2 hours. Play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. MyFFPC.com is where to go. Enter for as little as $35, win up to $2,500. Use the lineup we put together tonight as well. Enjoy the rest of the game. For Matt Deutsch, for Kev Wheeler, I am Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. Have a great weekend, everybody.